Hi, I'm Brian Lloyd.
And I'm Deirdre Millenby.
And this is the Film Show bonus special episode show, I guess. Whatever. This is our interview with Hugo Weaving, who was over in Ireland to promote Black 47.
So we talked about the movie, we talked about his past work, talked about his career and how the roles that he takes on are now that bit different. We kind of fangirled about some of his movies like Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, The Matrix and stuff like that.
Lord of the Rings,
of course.
Lord Elrond, holy crap. It was a really interesting interview. I think we got a lot into it. You'll see clips of this on this week's show as well. If you like the interview, like and subscribe. If you like our interviews, we also have a new podcast called On the Line, where just last week, Deirdre talked to Dave Bautista.
That's
which
right.
was pretty cool.
It was very cool.
So, if you like the show, let us know. Leave a comment below, and thanks for watching.
Enjoy.
The first question I wanted to ask you was about, after I saw Black 47, I remember thinking to myself, it was like, wow, I've never seen Hugo Weaving give that kind of performance before where it's so kind of raw and visceral. But then again, literally every role you've done, I think, has been completely different from the last. I suppose that's by design then, yeah?
Yeah, I'm an actor, so that's what I do, really. And actually, most of the films that I do are psychologically complex characters in Australian films that you may not have seen. But big budget film studios in America, everything's different, and that's a blessing for me. I feel very lucky and privileged, but I was trying to find things that stimulate me, that are interesting to me,
In terms of finding different roles, is like moral complexity ever something that you kind of consider? Because we've seen you play very good characters, very bad characters. What I find really interesting about your one in Black 47 is you're constantly trying to guess, is he a good guy, is he bad, and your loyalties to him, I suppose, are constantly shifting.
Well, I think he's a man, when you meet him, he's so damaged. He's almost a dead man walking, and he's a professional soldier who's spent his life fighting for the crown. He's an Englishman, but we'd say he has PTSD.
Of course,
he's so severely damaged and traumatized. But at the same time, he's an incredibly experienced, skilled soldier and hunter, and someone who's internalized all that trauma, and so won't even be able to look at it himself. But he's got to such a place that at the beginning of the film, he one of the first things we see him, he actually kills someone with it, and he doesn't even know why he's doing it. I always saw that was his own wish to kill himself in a way. So that's where we start with him.
Start him from that.
And he then goes on this journey. He's sort of forced to. He has he's his arm twisted behind his back. He has to track this guy down, and in a way that journey is the sort of beginning of his own salvation.
It's interesting because you're a Shakespearean actor, and you've done Macbeth and all that, but with this, and even roles that you like people would know you from, like say Elrond and Lord of the Rings or Agent Smith, it's all about the monologue, and it's all about your deep authorial voice. Do you find though that when there's such a lack of dialogue like in this, is that a help or a hindrance?
Well, there was more dialogue originally, and it was pared back, and I think that was actually it was a great thing. There were times, so a lot of that initial stuff in the script, and a lot of the backstory, a lot of the work you do. If you then take that out, the work is still there, the character's still there, but he's a man of few words, and he's very little to say about anything. So I think it's a great help. But knowing that all of that was there. But he just doesn't need to say it anymore. It's actually exactly right for Hannah.
I was wondering about kind of your more like active, role in this and everything, like getting into the action, because we've seen you in more action roles in the past, but maybe kind of, more full on, like with the likes of like The Matrix and all the stunts involved in that. I know that was quite a bit far back, but do you like still engaging with the action aspect of films as well, and stunts and that?
Not really. It's sort of anomalous for me, really, and action for its own sake doesn't interest me.
Sure.
It just doesn't. The interesting thing about this particular period in this action, it's a very traumatic world that we're entering into, but at the same time, the genre of the piece, it's a revenge Western thriller, really.
Yeah, like Josie Wales, almost.
Yeah, that's right, and so there are elements of it which you think, well, this is an action sequence. This, particularly the stuff that James Freshfield, who plays Feeney, has to get up to. He's trapped in a room in handcuffs, and there are 6 or 7 men, and he somehow has to get out. So you have to do that in such a way and choreograph it in such a way, but it doesn't want to look like it's an action movie.
Of course,
So that was always the getting the genre right, getting the packaging right, but maintaining the truth of it, the truth of the situation. We're talking about guns that misfire. There are 3 or 4 instances where the powder's not dry enough for the gun to go off, and that's a sort of refrain that's repeated. So you have to rely on all sorts of other things. It's like a barroom brawl, really. People fighting for their lives, and that's exactly the world we're in.
Yeah, so it's more about it being like an organic part of the role as opposed to you kind of going for a genre.
No, I would never be attracted to a role based. I mean, I'm too old now, and I kind of.
I was going to say,
the idea of fighting the way training the way we did for the Matrix, I thought I was too old for that anyway. But
you like break your hip or something?
Doing kung fu when you're starting to learn kung fu when you're 30, whatever I was at the time, was pretty full on. So,
I can imagine.
Yeah, it was good. We got very fit, but
you wouldn't want to.
I wouldn't want to be doing that all the time.
Christ,
and the guys who were teaching us, all these Hong Kong wire team guys, who they were all like walking around like the walking wounded. They all had hip issues and problems, and
that's right.
Anyway. So.
I mean, it's just because on this show, I mean, we're absolutely huge fans of Keanu Reeves. I mean, I know you've mentioned before that, action for action's sake is not something that you would be interested in. But I mean, and I know you've talked before about, larger budget films and the fact that smaller films move more quickly and it's more kind of immediacy. I mean, do you foresee yourself ever going back, or I mean, is it purely just a case of what the text is and what the role is, that you'd go back to something along those lines?
It's usually what presents itself next, and what you're interested in, and where you're heading. There's some design and some just
career.
Yeah, what's ahead. I don't generally think things in terms of the career. No, I'm not good at doing that. I'll just
follow your nose.
Follow. Yeah, it's an instinctive thing, really.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you one just because I know there's been a lot of talk about it, and again, it's one of those roles, and I say this honestly. I mean, I really do think your performance in Lord of the Rings was incredible. Like, it was such a heartfelt performance. I mean, that speech with you and Arwen when he tells her about the future of the two of them. I mean, that I swear I watched it last night. That fucking thing brings me to tears. Like, it's so beautiful. Have they asked you about the Amazon thing, the Amazon series that they're doing? I mean, has there been any discussions?
I don't know anything about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I had to ask.
Yeah.
I just had to ask.
I have been out to New Zealand. There's a film called Mortal Engines, which will be coming out at the end of the year. So I have been seeing all of those people again. Peter Jackson et al. So I've been hanging out there with them. But haven't talked about Lord of the Rings. I think that's gone for me. Yeah.
Really?
Oh yeah.
What can you tell us about Mortal Engines? Because actually there's another Irish connection there, because you work with Robert Sheehan on it, of course.
Yeah, Robbie was great. Lovely to meet him.
Yeah.
Very good to meet him.
Isn't he?
Yeah, he's a wonderful guy. Really, really very fond of him. And so it'd be good to catch up with him when we do our big promotion at the end of the year.
Sure,
Actually, I'll see him. It won't be too long. I'll see him in New York, I think. But.
Can we talk about your theatre work, because I know that is something that you're very excited about and it's something that you do a lot of. I mean, the fact that the way your career is now, that you're a very well-known actor. I mean, do you find that you're doing film work to kind of keep you doing theatre work, or do you think of it in that terms?
I don't think about it like that at all. There was a stage about 2 years, not that long ago, I just stopped doing theatre because it was there was a number of roles, Macbeth and playing Vladimir and Waiting for Godot and Endgame as well. So I did a lot of Beckett actually, and Chekhov, and I just sort of thought I needed to have a break from theatre for a couple of years. But this year, actually the last thing I did was Arturo Ui in Sydney. So that was fantastic to be to be working back on that again. What was your question again, Virginia?
No, I mean, just because I know there are quite a few actors.
Oh yeah, do I choose? Do I do film to support my theatre?
Yeah.
No,
Not like that, no.
No, it's just what I'm trying. If I can do work on one play a year and one film a year, and then something else, that's about all I can cope with.
Yeah.
So I'm lucky that I can do that.
You're in television as well with Patrick Melrose this year, so you like to keep that variety, or is there one particular media that you have a preference for working in, or just?
Yeah, again, I don't say I need to do the TV, now I need to do film, now I need to do theatre. There's something offered. The Patrick Melrose thing was a fantastic, extraordinary book. It was just a wonderful gift of a job, really, for me. Incredible role, and great to go over and work, meet Edward St Alban, who'd written the books, and work with all of those people. So again, it's the scripts come up, the role comes up, you read them and think, wow, this is great, I've got to do it. So, but that might not have happened. Maybe there was something else would have been offered. So it's a little, as an actor in a way, you're a creative artist, but you're also an interpretive artist. So you do need to wait for someone to say, how about this or what about that, unless you're developing your own projects, of course. But even then, as an actor, you're generally waiting for someone else to throw you the bait.
I would love to ask, because I know this is something that Liam Neeson talked about quite a bit. He was talking about Schindler's List, and he was saying that he didn't like that role because he didn't see any of his own performance in it. He felt like the director was very much giving him the cues and telling him what to do. I mean, have you ever had that experience yourself, where you've looked at a performance and everyone loved it, but you yourself are sort of like, no, I didn't get that.
That's interesting. He's great in that.
He is, but he doesn't like it.
Yeah, it's interesting. Well, I mean, Schindler. I mean, really, he's a man who's trapped in. He's trapped in a world, and he's trapped in a machine. He's trapped in a way of doing things, and he's forced to circumvent that in a very it's buried, and no one can see what he's doing, otherwise his cover's blown. So he in a way has to be one thing and yet not be that thing. So that's probably why, as an actor, you sort of buried all your intentions. You buried everything the character has. So that's why it's not something that's declared. The character isn't declared, and that to me is a fascinating character. That's someone who's incredibly kind of compromised, and yet they sort of have a need that even they don't understand to move towards a conclusion that they don't even know what that's going to be. So that's a real gift.
Dee, I'll give you the last question before we wrap it up.
I'm gonna geek out a bit for this question, if that's okay.
That's all right.
Because obviously, you probably get asked about Lord of the Rings and the Matrix all the time, but a movie of yours I absolutely adore is Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. That is a movie that is just so full of colour and joy and just feel-good factor and music. It turns 24 years old this year. Do you have any fond memories when you think back to the shoot?
Yeah. Give us one.
It was the film that we were everyone involved on that. It was like the time of our lives we had making that, really. It was such an extraordinary idea. You get 3 drag queens on a bus going out into the red centre of Australia. You go, okay, I'm in. Don't tell me anymore. I'm in. And we shot the beginning and the end of the film in Sydney. So we had the end and the beginning, but then we went on the journey, and we kind of shot pretty chronologically as we travelled and had travel days. So the whole experience of making that film was an absolute, it was an insane delight. It really was. It was a very special time. And so I think that joy that we experienced and the madness we experienced is kind of on the screen. Yeah.
Okay, we are really out of time, so we're going to leave it there.
A pleasure talking to you both.
We've received reports of a deadly attack on a constabulary station in Connemara.
What do you want?
One of our Connaught Rangers. I understand that he is an effective soldier.